You'd rather not have to talk about it at all?
Yes, I would, but I want people to know that the record's out there, and so I have to let people know that it's out there. But, you know, I just get on with my life, and so this, for me, is just a very small part of it. And yet for people standing at the outside looking in, this is the bit that they see, and then they have this impression of me just retreating away, you know, into some sort of big vampire castle or something. But to me, it's mad, because, you know, this is just the little bit where I come and say, hi, you know, the album's out, please go and buy it.
Ariel is a 2-CD set. The first disc contains 7 songs, some of which seem to be concerned with feelings, whilst others are absorbed with direct references to Kate's domestic life. When I first heard this album, I was surprised by this apparent frankness, and I couldn't understand why an artist who seemed so protective of her privacy would present songs which seemed to put her deepest feelings up for public scrutiny. Wasn't there a contradiction in that?
I don't think that is a contradiction. I think that in a lot of ways it makes complete sense. And it's not that I guard my privacy fiercely, but, you know, I think the creative process is something that's very difficult to focus on. You have so many distractions. There's such an incredible amount of stuff that comes in to interfere with that process. You know, you've got so many technical things interfering with doing a vocal, for instance. I often think it's a bit like an actor trying to get into their role, and they can't have that take because the lighting was wrong.
Yeah.
Or they get a great take and then they've got to do it again because a bit of the set fell down. And it's almost like hanging on to that creative intention is actually very difficult throughout all the distractions that come along. And I think for me to get into that creative process, I have to have a sort of quiet place that I work from. And if I was living the life of somebody in the industry as a pop star or whatever, it's too distracting. It's too to do with other people's perceptions of who you are. And what's important to me is to be a human being who has a soul and who hopefully has a sense of who they are, not who everybody else thinks you are. And I think, you know, that's something that's very difficult for people who become extremely famous, to hang on to just being a human being.
At times, Ariel features lots of instruments, sounds, voices and complex arrangements. Other times, it's just Kate at the piano. But then, she's always had a vivid musical imagination, and I wondered where that first surfaced.
I remember it was that Wednesday, oh, when it rained and it rained. It was probably about 9 when I first started to play around with just little ideas, but by the time I was 12 through to 14, I was taking it very seriously. And when I came home from school, I'd sit and play the piano.
Even at that age, you knew you were going to have a crack at it?
I don't know, I knew it was something that I felt sort of semi-obsessed by, really, which is that getting hooked process, which I think, again, I was actually very lucky to find that so young, because that allowed me to have a deeper connection with it somehow.
Do you still play the piano for fun? Or does it feel too much like work?
Well, I think my work is fun, and so there's not really a distinction, it's one and the same. Then I took my laundry basket, put all the linen in it, and everything I could fit in, and all our dirty clothes that hadn't gone into the wash, and all your shirts and jeans and things, and put them in the
There's a song on the album primarily about a washing machine.
Washing machine.
Mrs.
Bartolozzi.
Mrs. Bartolozzi.
Washing machine.
There will be some people who say, well, you know, perhaps you ought to get out more if you're writing a song about a washing machine.
Is it? Is it a song about a washing machine? I think it's a song about Mrs. Bartolozzi.
Well, I don't know who Mrs. Bartolozzi is.
Well, she's this lady in the song who does a lot of washing.
It's not you, then?
No, it's not me.
Is it a real character or a fictitious one?
No, it's fictitious, but, you know, as soon as you have a child, the washing suddenly increases enormously.
Absolutely, it's on all the time.
And I was spending a lot of time in the washing room.
Yeah.
And what I like too is a lot of people actually think it's funny. And I think that's great, because actually I think it's one of the heaviest songs I've ever written. idea of this woman who's kind of sitting there looking at all the washing going around. Fish swim between my legs, tumbling around in the water, and then the water becomes the sea and the clothes, and the sea and the washing machine and the kitchen. And I just thought it was just an interesting idea to play with. I see you standing outside, but it's just your shirt hanging on the washing line, waving its arm as the wind blows by, and it looks so alive, nice and just like it's climbed right out of me.
There's a journey that goes on in that song, and I don't know where it leads, and it gets very sensual sounding. It almost gets very sexual sounding. I wonder whether the waves were a different kind of waves, or whether I was reading too much into it. There's one place where your skirt is up around the waist, and I was sort of reminded of the cover of Never Forever, with the drawing of you lifting your skirt and all these fairies and goblins emerging from under it. So, I wonder...
I still can't look at that without laughing.
It's great, I like that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I was thinking of this sensual thing that comes out of the washing machine and doing the washing and all that. And I was kind of thinking you're almost a musical Nigella. The sensuality of the domestic experience, you know. Did he think about that at all?
No.
Is that song about sex?
I don't think it's about sex, but I think it is quite sexy.
It made me think about that John Donne poem, The Good Morrow. The key line in it makes one little room and everywhere. The idea that everything you see is through this domestic world that you create around you, that one place can be a kind of spyglass to lots of other places.
Well, I think in some ways, you know, we all see our lives from inside our heads, which aren't really connected to the physical world or the structure of time at all. Washing machine. That's what's so interesting about art forms like music and books. They're to do with the passing of time. There's a connection of you being taken somewhere on a journey that is not the same as perhaps a painting. It's almost something that is set in that instant. Do you know what I mean? Whereas music and stories unfold with time.
And on the winding, windy moors we roll and fall in green. You had a temper like my jealousy, too hard, too greedy. How could you leave me?
Kate Bush's work is often linked with literature. Her first single, Wuthering Heights, was, of course, written from the point of view of Charlotte Bronte's Gothic heroine Cathy. And I think Kate loves narrative because it can both expand and freeze time. It can take us on a journey. It can take us within ourselves or force us to turn outwards. And all those ideas were there right at the start of her career.